Now, we all know this stuff. And my reason for the meeting tonight was to start a revolution. Because I really believe in your heads and in your hearts. All of you wouldn't be here because you really have a passion for this. But I've been to your meetings and I hear all that. I go to Hardee's a lot. And I'll go in there, almost everyone at the Hardee's now become little revolutionary areas. Have you been there? You know what I'm talking about? I went to McDonald's one day down in Charleston to see the doctor, and I got too early. I said, well, I go to McDonald's and get it. I sat down, and all of a sudden, about 25 or 30 seniors came in, swarmed the place. They had bingo pads, and they had all kinds of stuff. And I'm sitting there in this seat, and this lady's standing there just waiting for me to get up. And I'm eating my biscuit, and I keep looking up, she's standing. And I kept waiting. I said, I'm eating my biscuit. As soon as I got my biscuit, she said, shh. And when I turned around, everything was taken. So I hung around for a few minutes. They hadn't started playing bingo, but they started talking about their kids, their grandkids, financial problems, Obama, you know, everything. And I heard the same conversation. Went to a Hardee's one morning over here in Goose Creek. They piled in there. So I got right in there with them, sat over to the side. Same conversation. Everything we talked about, I've said tonight differently, but y'all have the heart. You've got gray hair, white hair, even though it may be dyed, or no hair. Or no hair, okay? And think about this. God has granted you to live this long. You have a heart full of wisdom. You're getting tired. Some of us are sick. I have cancer. It was terminal cancer 6 years ago, but I'm still here. Okay? Went to the doctor today. He said, doing good, so I'm moving on. But within us, and I didn't show you this number. Don, did we have a graph of the voters up there, or the seniors, when they turn, how many of them are? All right, I'll just quote the numbers by. Watch this, and I'll do it real quick, and I want to end with this. Larry, you be ready, because I want to come up here and get you to do your little thing real quick, and then we'll have a few minutes of plans. Right now, he said there's 77 million. One number says 81 million. 10,000 a day are turning 65. All right. In 2030, it's estimated there'll be 89 to 93 million people who will be in their 70s. In other words, we are getting older. Did y'all know that? We're just not stuck here. We're going to be over here with this group. Well, that's why I said in 15 years the judgment's going to happen. That's when it's going to hit the fan. Because by that time, most of you are out of the workforce. The reason why there's no jobs for our college kids now and everything else, because many of us are staying at jobs, staying at work. And even now, some of the older ones are coming back. You go to some of these places now, and you see people in their 80s still working because they can't make it on fixed incomes. So we're taking up all the jobs that our younger generation should be having. Look at how many people there are. At this time, the estimated population, I think it's going to be somewhere around 390 million or something like that. I think that's the estimate. Because these immigrants are having babies. Next time you go to a Mexican restaurant, we'll really go to a Chinese restaurant because Mexican immigrants eat at Chinese and Chinese eat there. I mean, I eat around, so I know. But anyway, they have lots of kids. Their culture is to have more kids. They're Catholics. Catholics believe in no protection, just have babies. God will bless. And they're having it. Population's going to grow quick. But there's still this many people living. And my dilemma as a pastor, sharing all this with you, that's why I'm looking for wisdom and insight. Somehow, we've got to consolidate and get this voting power so we can make our weight be felt on the issues that are dear to our hearts. And the only way to do that is at the local level. You can put a school board member on the school board with about 500 to 1,000 votes. That's all it takes. Because when you vote a block like that, you can run them out. You can take over a county seat with about 2,000 votes. State House, it gets a little more difficult, get on up a little more difficult. But you can go to a Republican precinct. But I was vice chairman of the Republican Party for 2 years. I didn't know this. You can go to the precinct meetings, find out where they are, where they're being held, go there and get in there and get registered as a Republican at that precinct. You can take over a precinct and then you can turn around and dictate who runs for office. That's the kind of revolution I'm talking about, where you can take it to local level. But here's a better way. You can get in your church. Your pastors are afraid of you. They're afraid to do what I'm doing here tonight. My people encourage me to do more, so that's why I'm doing it. But really, most pastors are afraid. Number two, a lot of pastors don't have time to do the research and aren't well informed enough to get up and give you the facts and don't know how and which direction to go. That's where you as a leader in some of these can say, all we need, pastor, is your blessing and you showing up with your face, and that's really what we need, because you're behind us. But a lot of them are afraid because they're afraid you'll leave their church and take their money. They're afraid to work with other pastors for the same reason. That their people come to your meeting and you're a pastor, maybe like me or the other boy down here, Kevin, or someone else, and say, well, that's what I want, I'll just leave my church and go there. Well, that defeats the purpose, because now we're all up in one church. I like diversity. We'll spread out and get all the churches together. So those who are coming from other churches, we're not trying to get you to Ridge back. We're trying to go back to your church and energize that church. Writing campaigns, letter campaigns, things like that work. But I'm talking about a revolution where you really muscle up and organize and go into these precincts, and then on the school board, which is not politically minded, and take over the school boards. Because let me tell you what, all that federal money coming in here is dictating what's being taught to your kids. Y'all want to stop Common Core? Stop it at the throat. And I told you, Common Core is nothing more. It's been here since 1976, just a new name, it's the same animal. They want to take the world, take the United States, and make it equal to the world instead of us exceeding, excelling above the world in education. They want to dumb us down. But they need a workforce. It's not entrepreneurs and excelling in education and everything. You say, what's happening to American education? They're dumbing us down for a reason so we can fit in with the rest of the world so they can rule us in the new world order. That's what's happening. They're going to come into your homes and tell you what you can do with your values. Because if your kid comes to school, and I had a little kid Sunday morning 2 weeks ago, came up here and told me, and he's just now getting into science, and he came up here before the service started, and he said, Pastor, he said, I can't believe my teacher, what she told me this week. She said, we really come from little eggs, and there were people in those little eggs, and we just popped out like frogs, and then we became, and then she said, well, some of us came from apes, and he was all upset. He said, what am I going to tell? He's in the 5th grade. This past Sunday, he hit me at the door. He said, I don't even think my teacher's a Christian. I put my hands on him and I said, why don't you become a Christian Scientist? Because everything they're telling you are a pack of lies. My point is we can take over, but it's going to take, now I just threw a few seeds out there after. It's great to have meetings. This is the last one I hold unless I have to do another one somewhere else. If you want to come, that's fine. But I'm telling you this, in your meetings, come up with action plans. So 9/12, y'all got some things going on, and I know the John Birch people doing some others. But I'm talking about specific things where you actually target people. Now, Senator Grooms is going to come up here, and he's going to talk a little bit about abortion and how to end it and what he plans to do. My plan is to introduce a bill. I'm going to let him help me write it out, and then he can introduce it under his name. I don't care who gets the glory, just stop the killing. And I want to be the impetus behind him to do this. My plan is to regulate the industry, not to end it. So if you try to end it, you got to fight with the Supreme Court. But if you as South Carolinians say, we don't want our young women coming to these clinics in unsanitary conditions, so we require that that clinic has to meet DHEC regulations like every medical facility does, number one. Number two, if a doctor is going to end the life of a baby in that facility, he has to be a bona fide doctor who meets DHEC regulations for the state of South Carolina. The abortion doctors coming into South Carolina aren't from South Carolina. They fly them in to do the killing. 15 years ago when I was going to the clinic, they found out who he was. He was coming from Tennessee. He was going to like 8 different clinics. He was a dentist who gave up his dentistry and went and got certified, he says, to kill and take care and to kill babies, and South Carolina lets him come in here. In Charleston, every year they kill anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 babies right up under your noses. The other one's up in Greenville. One of them is already shut down. If we, as citizens, say, no, we want clean, healthy medical facilities. The girls have to see a sonogram of that baby and wait 24 hours before they can do that. Then if they go through all those loopholes, but there's a catch. I have a book in my Bible, in my office called The Hand of God. Dr. Nathanson personally killed 66,000 babies with his own hands. 66,000 abortions with his own hands. Someone led him to the Lord. It was a Catholic who shared Jesus with him. In his book, about halfway through there, he says this. It's all based on money. If the cost goes up, the abortions go down. He says, and how you get the cost to go up is you regulate it. And he said, put a sonogram required. and you regulate the industry and the doctor. He said, when you do that, the average cost for an abortion now, and I talked with a young girl last week who came to my office, didn't ask her to come. She come and told me how she'd got her baby now, and she thought about abortion, but she didn't do it, and thank God. But she said, I want to help end abortion. And I said, would you testify before a committee? She said, yes, I will. I said, how much was they going to cost you? She said, $500. I said, if that cost went up to $700, she said, I couldn't have done it. And she said, I had to scrape up the money without people knowing about it. $500, best I could do. I said, really? I said, if it got to $1,000, she said, oh, I know there's a lot of girls, they just soon have their babies and give them up for adoption. Or quit having babies. You know, that has a tendency, when you know you can't get rid of something you got to take care of, that has a tendency to saying, you know, I don't think I'll do this. Or if I'm going to do this, I'll make sure I don't get pregnant. So, responsibility, accountability. But when you get a cheap killing, they can do that, $500. So Larry, that's in essence is my bill. I want to introduce and regulate the industry in such a way that these doctors have to be South Carolinians. The other thing that Texas did was the doctor has to be able to admit the girl to a hospital if something goes wrong. See, we don't have that. The girl, if she's down there and she starts bleeding when she comes out, she's on her own. In fact, they have to sign a document saying that. But suppose we South Carolinians said, no. You harm that girl in a procedure, you'll be held accountable, and you will have to have the license to admit her to a hospital. And I got news for you, not a hospital in South Carolina would admit her. Okay? So there's action plans. But I need your help, because when I go after these guys, I'm going to find out who their preachers are. And I'm going to get you to sign with me a petition to these senators, and I'm going to call them out, and I'm going to write their pastors. And if I have to, get a handful of them to stand in front of their church and says, you have a member of your church who promotes killing babies. I ain't going to have no dead babies on the sign, just a sign. You're a church member. We're Christians. Hold each other accountable. Now that's wicked. From some people's standpoint, to me, it's wrong. But at the same time, guess what? It will work. A Christian brother facing a Christian brother saying, stop the killing. We don't do that, do we?